Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. I'm hoping we have some wonderful new people out there tonight, lured in by the promise of this kind of event series thing we're doing. What is it that we're doing? Just in case you've stumbled upon this, what we're doing is an anthology series based on the World of Darkness tabletop RPG systems created by Werewolf in the 90s, but specifically we are using the 20th anniversary editions created nearly 10 years ago now by Onyx Path, which are sort of just revised versions. And we're using those versions because they're a nice kind of summary package of those old systems. There is a new version, V5, of Vampire the Masquerade out there, but because we're doing different systems, we thought, let's wind the clock back a bit and consolidate it all and use those 20th anniversary editions. So that's why we're doing that. What is World of Darkness? It is a gothic-punk veil dropped over our world, specifically within our anthology, our world in 1995, in one city on one day. The city is Cincinnati, and the day is mid-July in 1995. Yeah. What date is it? Oh, it's not a mystery. I just haven't put a date on it. It's all fine. So in a moment, we're going to start introducing the characters, and then we'll do a little bit of a talk about how this series as a whole is going to go. And then we'll get started, and we're getting started with the classic system, the one that started them all, Vampire the Masquerade. But before that, I have my usual promo stuff to do. If you check down below, there's a bunch of links. There's links to our YouTube and to our Twitch. You're watching this on one of those. Why not check out the other? There's links to our social media, our Discord, our Patreon. If you like the kind of things that are on those different sorts of web services, then please go check them out and follow us and all that good stuff. We run 3 weekly tabletop roleplay actual play campaigns here on Twitch. Each of them start at the same time, so 8 o'clock in the evening GMT currently. Mondays is Shadows of Estrin, which is a sort of low gothic fantasy thing that's only just started. That's with Johnny's group, and as I say, that's on Mondays. Wednesdays is Simbroom, which is sort of our flagship series of dark fantasy. I suddenly realized that Shadows and Simbroom sound very similar, but they are quite distinct. And Simbroom runs on Wednesdays. And Thursdays is this, the Cincinnati Chronicles, and it's starting tonight. So, yeah, welcome again. We also have monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month where we visit different systems and do kind of like one-shot stories. The next one of those is this Saturday, in fact. It is Saturday the 6th of November, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon GMT, we'll be playing Dune, Adventures in the Imperium. How timely, almost as if we were clever and planned it that way. Such a thing could not happen. But yeah, join us this Saturday for some spicy role play in the world, the setting of Dune. There we go. I think that's about it. Normally my intros take a lot longer, but I'm being all slick today, perhaps inspired. And look, I hope everyone out there appreciates Cincinnati Chronicles. Yeah, Bengals representing. I know my stuff. Yeah, I may just sound like an English idiot, but I'm also wearing a Bengals shirt. I'm not sure that contradicts it. So let's start bringing on our players. They can start talking about their characters for this story arc of Vampire the Masquerade, and then we'll basically hop into it after just a kind of little introduction to the series overall. So first off, let's bring on John. Regulars will recognize John from everything that Telling Tales does. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Matt.
Are you excited? And tell us about your character.
Good. Yes. And my character is Isaac Cole, who is a bourgeois who is not directly anarch sympathetic, but definitely skeptical about this whole Camarilla malarkey, who was in life and also largely in death a union, like pro-union advocate and employment academic.
Sure, there we go. Incidentally, if anyone's wondering, I don't know what all those different words mean. I don't think we'll have time within this anthology to stop and explain the various things of the World of Darkness to you, I'm afraid. But feel free to Google them, or you'll pick them up as we go along. But yes, Cole of Clan Brujar is our first character. Now, let's bring on our second player, Holly, who I don't think has been on one of our weekly series so far. So I think this is, her first venture onto that. But you've been in plenty of one-shots that we've done. Yes, well, very experienced in telling tales. Why don't you tell us about your vampire, please, Holly?
So I am playing Natalia Wolf, who is a reasonably young toreador, whose day or night job, as it were, it doesn't really pay, is a graffiti artist, and that is what attracted her to the artist clan. She's only been a vampire for a couple of years at this point and is struggling to come to terms with it, but is having fun spray painting stuff, usually on cop cars.
Usually on cop cars, and also I believe, as you may have already mentioned it, I'm thinking and listening at the same time, but it's safe to say that Natalia also has some Anak tendencies. Is that that's correct? Yeah. There we go.
Doesn't generally like most forms of authority.
Doesn't do well with authority. Oh, very familiar. So let's bring on our third player, Inga. Shock and surprise, it's Inga off a Monday night. Yes. And the one-shots as well that Inga has been on. So, yes, welcome, Inga, to Thursdays. I mean, welcome everyone to Thursdays. It's our first Thursday. But why don't you tell us about your vampire?
So quite unlike the other two, definitely not on the anarchist kind of route. Joan Woods is a Tremere vampire and very much in the sort of politicking and influence from within rather than smash it all apart and break the system. So very, very different kind of angle on these sorts of things. Around sort of mid-30s in terms of age, at point of becoming a vampire, and has been a vampire for a few years now, but has only fairly recently turned up in the US and indeed in Cincinnati. So fairly new to town, having come across the pond from Europe.
Lovely. And finally, we have actually, because we've done vampire before on Telling Tales, and we have another repeat offender, because John was in the vampire story as well. But we have Pierre. Hello, Pierre. How are you?
Hello, Matt. I am well.
Good.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your particular monster?
What are you saying?
God, I love that picture. I love it so much.
So yeah, Fen is he's a Nosferatu, which you may be able to tell. He is something of a tragic soul, I guess. He was going to be in life a sort of an actor. He had aspirations, and he was getting close to maybe touching a bit of that starlight, but he was then taken as sometimes the Nosferatu are wont to do, and scarred in terrible ways that mean he will never achieve what he once wished for. But he's taking it all in his stride. Everything's great.
Yeah. He will never achieve his himbo dreams, but now he's
he's a very charismatic and was a very handsome fellow, and those were his two main traits in life.
Now he's having to find another way. So there we go. This is our coterie of vampires. As I said before, we're running Cincinnati Chronicles will be a series of 5 story arcs, or at least 5 story arcs. Each of them covering a different, what are termed splats, but I guess you could call them systems from the old world of darkness, and we'll be covering those sequentially, so we're not hopping between them. The cast will be this one, plus another regular called Chris, who are doing a kind of rotational thing where everyone misses one of the story arcs so that we all don't get horribly overwhelmed. So Chris is missing the vampires. And then we're going through them in order of release. So we'll go Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Wraith, and Changeling, the 5 core ones. And each of those stories will be kind of linked, but not strictly sequential, right? So you can, if there's one system you don't particularly like, or only one you do like, you can just watch that and enjoy it as the little short story it is. We're aiming to make each of these arcs 4 episodes, and therefore 4 streams. we'll see how that goes. Because as regular viewers will know, I have a problem with ending things. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, right? So it'll be good. And there'll be a kind of meta narrative coming over it. So if you watch them all, maybe you'll be like, oh, that's interesting because that links to that. And that's the idea. That's the idea anyway. This is based at least partly on a structural notion I had when I was 15, which if you're watching the stream, you can tell was quite a long time ago. So let's hope it goes well, or all my dreams will be ruined. So yeah, no pressure on the players, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, the place is Cincinnati. The time is July 1995. And without any further ado, let us pick up our story. We are in a district of Cincinnati called North Fairmount. It is not a very well-to-do area of the city, quite impoverished, and most of the roads are lined with kind of sporadic wooden houses of the type you could quite easily refer to as shacks that have been there maybe a century or more, a number of them boarded up, a number of them overgrown with trees kind of even growing through parts of their outhouses and things like that. Some of them occupied, most not at this stage. On one side of the road that we begin on, there are these houses, and on the other side is lit more by the yellow sodium of street lights spilling out in a sickly haze over the road, stopped only by a relatively large gas station sat there with the white light out from the neon inside, conflicting with the yellow streetlights. And pulling up at that gas station is, in a slightly out of place fashion, a beautiful vintage cherry red Cadillac. And there are 4 individuals in this. And I guess it's a cliche of how to start an adventure, but you need gas. So why don't we start by you telling me, and I think it's fair to say, I think we agreed, isn't it, that this Cadillac is the proud possession of Fenn's, even though maybe it's not a terribly good idea for him to drive it nowadays.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. And in fact, I got this on, it was a bit of a gift as a thing to get me started, and I hadn't even really learned to drive at the point at which I was given it. So I'm being driven around by my lovely chauffeurs. Have we decided which of you two is driving right now?
We had 2 candidates. Who's driving tonight?
I'll be kind and I'll let Cole drive for now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, your tank is almost dry, and yeah, you're pulling up to get gas. And not to focus on the minutiae as we kick off, just to establish scene. Who do we think might be the person who? How does everyone act when they stop to get gas? Who gets out of the car, either to fill the tank or to wander around, to smoke or do anything? How do we all react to this?
I definitely, I'm like kind of slouched down in one of the back seats, just trying to like stay kind of out of sight, because I don't particularly want to engage with the world very much, and I'm sort of idly playing with the harmonica in my hands, not yet like blowing on it, but just kind of doing that. And I guess I look across to Cole, and it's like, it's your turn.
So you're in the passenger seat.
Yeah. So I was imagining I was in the back, but
sure.
Yeah.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm driving shotgun.
Yeah. I imagine you're there ready to jump in if, for whatever reason, I need to.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So it's it's a sweltering night, but that doesn't particularly affect you as vampires. Is the hood down or up?
It is up while Fenn is in, I believe.
Sure. Yeah.
Very thoughtful.
I get out and start pumping the gas because I get the pleasure of driving, I get the chore of filling her up.
That's very fair enough. How about Natalia?
While Cole is filling up, I'm going to sneak over, like not even get out of the car. I'm just going to be getting into the driver's seat.
Sure. You've been driven around tonight long enough. How about Joan?
In the back, next to Fen, but fairly disinterestedly, just looking out the window, keeping an eye if anyone comes close to the car, but otherwise quietly sat there.
There is no one else in this, in the gas station lot at the moment. No one else filling up. The streets have been quite oddly empty tonight. Here's the thing: is the radio on? And if the radio is on, are you listening to the news or are you listening to music?
Definitely listening to music. Who has time for the news? Moves much too fast.
Fair enough. Hey, it's Fen's car. Maybe it's his choice. What kind of music are you listening to?
I think I'm listening to. Oh, you see that. What would Fen want? Because I know what Pierre would want.
It's like, what would Pierre want in the 90s, but what would Fen want in 1995?
Yeah. Oh man, maybe Fen is listening to some country. Like he is just listening to just corny, incredibly
corny kind of country. Yeah.
Not
even the good stuff.
Real positive vibe. He's enjoying this.
Yeah, it's definitely the years before Stadium Country fully took off, but Fen's listening to the prototypes of that.
I'm
sure, absolutely. And as that music drifts over the station lot, Cole, you filled it up.
I'll park the nozzle. Just noticed Natalia having stolen my seat. But without a word, I'll head into the station to pay.
Sure, absolutely. So you walk up, and as I say, it's one of those kind of gas stations that has, what our cousins over in North America would term a mini mart, I think, kind of like a small supermarket. We all are familiar with these, but it's fairly expansive, lit by kind of harsh neon that you suspect if you were still mortal would make you blink with the contrast as you walk through the door. You swing open the doors. There's kind of a harsh electronic buzz above you as you do so, and you look around, not immediately able to see the cashier. Can you give me our first roll of the game, please?
I'm honored.
How exciting. How exciting. And in a devastating turn from a typical storyteller system roll, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be wits and alertness. The most frequently used roll. Wits and alertness, please. If anyone's unfamiliar, we can give a very brief guide on how you roll in the system. You add one of the 9 attributes to one of the 27, I think, in this edition, abilities. You roll that many d10, and you're aiming to get over a certain difficulty, which for this is standard. It's 6, and you count the number of successes you've achieved on your different dice, and that's how many successes you have. Quite straightforward.
At difficulty 6, I have 4 successes.
4 successes is very good. So 1 is considered kind of marginal, just about good enough. 3 and over is considered, really good, really spot on. In that case, Cole, the scene in this gas station immediately sets off alarm bells in your head. Something is very wrong here. Several of the displays where all the kind of, the food and various knickknacks for sale are laid out. Several of the displays are knocked over. One of the shelving racks is tipped over to one side. And in multiple places throughout, you can see kind of spatters of blood on the floor, including kind of along one wall, quite high up on the wall. You can see a sort of where some kind of spray has doused itself, and the blood is fresh enough to still be slowly trickling its way down. You don't think it's happened in the last 5 minutes, but clearly not hours ago. There is no sign of anyone working here or any customers. Behind the counter, there is a small kind of like a little portable television that's you can hear the sounds of like a news report playing, and you can see a door towards the back, kind of behind the counter, that's into kind of the rear of the gas station that's ajar.
Are there any... I'm going to have a quick glance for security cameras.
There is one security camera. It's up behind the counter, and it's like, it's not in a great position, but it roughly looks to like it's seeing maybe most of the store.
Okay. I'm going to push the door, either push the door open, or if there's, in my head, there's always like a huge glass window wall on the side of...
Sure, I know the ones you mean, where you don't have to go in and pay, right? So you can like just talk.
No, I just mean like I'm basically going to gesture to my colleagues.
Yeah, almost the entire front is glass.
Yeah.
So you can definitely gesture to your coterie without leaving the store. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just gonna give a wave.
Okay. I'm going to roll my eyes and then turn the engine off that I had already turned on, ready to get going, and then
Hey,
go out.
What are you doing? I was listening to that.
Looks like something's up. Come on.
Okay, and then I exit the car.
Are any of the three of you kind of not reacting like that? Is Joan going as well?
Wait, he needs us all? What?
I look back at Joan and I kind of shrug, and like as I'm sort of walking bemusedly towards Cole, no one seems to be in any particular rush.
Sure. And let's try and get a little picture of the characters one by one through this scene as well. Fen, so you're leaving the car, and like obviously you look like a Nosferatu. How do you kind of, what are you wearing, and how do you generally kind of, I mean, are you kind of like a hood up kind of guy? How are you making any attempt to conceal yourself? I mean, you probably should.
Yeah, I think I will. I think I'm going to use my discipline of Mask of 1,000 Faces.
Okay. Yeah.
Which influences the perception of others, causing them to see a face different from mine. So the face that I'm going to go with is, I think, like the face of my brother.
So one you're like familiar with,
Yeah, but it's not my own.
Sure.
Or not the one I had in life.
Yeah, well, you know what? So the role for this is manipulation plus performance. There's no blood cost, fortunately. And you know what? I think the standard is difficulty 7. And it does say you need a good look at the subject before putting on the mask. And I can raise the difficulty if you catch only a glimpse. Given it's like someone you're really, really familiar with, like you grew up with, you know what? I'm actually going to lower that difficulty. I'm going to say it's difficulty 6.
Okay.
So why don't you give that roll? Oh, although it does say you have to pay additional blood points equal to the difference between your appearance rating and the appearance of the mask, and that's going to be at least some, because you are appearance 0 as a Nosferatu.
Yeah, maybe instead I should just become a very ugly man,
just like a less warped version of yourself.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's...
well, let's just have it standard difficulty 7 then, and that will just cost you 1 blood point. Okay. And for any of our, I actually maybe forgot to mention this before stream, but if anyone's wondering how much blood pool they begin with, I'm going to use the shorthand that's a D6 plus 4. So if you haven't rolled that up already, just go ahead and do that. All of you have a maximum pool of 10 because you're all 13th generation. So
I started off with 8, and I got 6, 8. So I got 3 successes, so 3 results above 6.
You look exactly the way that you want to appear.
Slightly ugly man.
I don't think it actually says on here how long it lasts, but I'm assuming at least a scene.
Usually, apparently, they're mostly a scene.
I think that's
with nearly
probably
all
the
of the
case.
obfuscate ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of you, obviously there's no one nearby, kind of, you can see maybe someone walking down the street like a way distance away, but it's a relatively quiet, dilapidated neighborhood. And Cole, as you're like watching, you can see Fen kind of stand up and walk towards the station. And as you've seen probably multiple times, his features sort of blur and shift slightly until he resembles an unattractive man, but not quite his usual self.
As he approaches, I am going to point out the camera to him, because I think Cole doesn't know whether this works against cameras.
Sure. Yeah.
But
I assume I would.
Yes, you would. And it does. Yes.
does it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe so. I think obfuscate works against cameras, doesn't it?
Since obfuscate clouds the mind of the viewer, vampires can't use it to hide their presence from electronic or mechanical devices. That might be a v20 update.
Precisely gainsaying me. Yeah, then it doesn't, but still.
Well, in that case, I'll sort of like, and then I'll like try and like sneak round the back by avoiding the cameras.
Okay, as in kind of like just sneak around the view of the camera inside, or like actually go around the back of the gas station?
I think I'll try to go around the back, because I assume that the gas station camera is like designed to give a good view of anyone coming and going from it. So I'll try and find another way in that bypasses.
That's fair. And I don't think we specifically covered it. What does Fen wear? Tell me what clothes Fen wears.
Yeah, he wears like a sort of a slightly like quite a big sort of leather jacket thing, with like a kind of loose and simple shirt underneath, and then like I think khaki kind of trousers. As
sure, sort of like cowboy casual.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe he's got a baseball cap on at the moment.
Sure, that sounds good. Sorry, Inga, were you saying something there?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Joan will have much more slowly than the others bother getting out of the car, taking the time to slightly sigh, take the key, lock the door, and probably by the time she's done this, like Fen's probably coming out, and so I'll maybe follow Fen and say, "What are we doing here? We just needed gas."
Cole wanted something. I guess we're. You can probably head on in, but there's a camera around the corner. So, you want to let me in or see what this is all about?
I'll head through to the door, maybe not through the door, and just outside, looking through, see what Natalia and Cole are up to inside.
Sure. So, if Natalia, you have, I think you've said that you've headed in by now. Or you were at least one of the first people to kind of exit, so one of the first people in there. I think it's safe to say we don't need to kind of like roll again or anything. Like you can see the same signs of disarray that Cole has seen, and as Fen creeps around the sign, Joan, you can also see them now. The kind of splatters of blood, the spray on the wall, the displays knocked over. As I said, there's a television behind the counter and it's still playing a news report, and it seems primarily concerned, from what you can hear, with some kind of explosion.
Okay, well, as I come in, I'm just going to like look up at the ceiling and just go, "Oh, someone made a mess."
That doesn't look like a normal robbery.
No. Anyone left in here?
Thought I'd ask for backup before I started looking. Know that I will start to head towards the door around the back of the counter.
Absolutely. You step round kind of the counter isn't particularly long, but the door's kind of like half behind a pillar, so you can't really see it that well. As you step behind the counter, you can see the door is ajar. The light in the corridor beyond it is on, if somewhat dim, and on the floor in the open doorway is a single severed human hand.
Oh. Fuck.
Okay, Natalia will probably come and look over your shoulder at this point and just go, "Oh," and then like look around to see if any other bits are in the room.
No, there's no. You kind of can have a quick look. It doesn't take too long to look down all the different aisles and stuff. There are no human remains other than splatters of blood around the gas station that you can see.
Okay. Is there like a trail of blood going out in a certain direction, like towards the back door or something?
Not so much, but you can certainly see that the door that's ajar to the rear of the station has kind of quite a few kind of drops and splatters of blood around it. There's nothing so explicit as a trail, but certainly, yeah, things have happened maybe in that direction.
So, okay. Well, looks like whatever's left of them isn't here. So,
is there any reason to think this concerns us, or do we get on our way?
I mean, who are we going to pay for gas?
We don't.
No one.
We're so law-abiding.
Has anyone investigated kind of behind the counter a bit more fully, or are we just?
I was going to go and have a closer look at the hand, but if anyone wants to go and look behind the counter, they're welcome to.
I was going to look under the counter for a specific thing.
Okay.
Because I imagine gas station attendants in 90s World of Darkness America will probably have some kind of anti-robbery weapon.
Sure, yeah.
I want to see if it's there.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Natalia, yeah, you can kind of maybe kneel down and take a closer look at this hand. As you do that, why don't you tell us what Natalia's wearing to kind of set the picture?
Probably. Well, it's night. It's fairly cold, so probably like a leather jacket.
It's very warm.
Okay. Well, in which case, yeah, still a leather jacket.
Sure.
But yeah, like scuffed up jeans, and then probably like a flannel around her waist.
Sure. Absolutely.
For when it does get cold.
Yeah. It's worth noting, by the way. Obviously, it is very warm, but being kind of a warm July night, but obviously none of you feel that in the slightest. Yeah. You're taking a closer look at this hand. Why don't you give me, I don't know, let's say give me a perception plus medicine roll. How does that sound?
That'll be a 2 dice then.
Difficulty 7, let's say.
No, neither.
Yeah, I mean, this is a severed hand. That's about as far as you can reach with that. You don't really have any notion. It looks fairly pale, and there's a small pool of blood underneath it on the floor.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it's nasty.
It's not rotting, but then I guess it would take a long time to do that anyway. But Natalia's pretty loose on that kind of detail.
Yeah, not really. Yeah,
sure. Cole, as for your perusals, why don't you give me a wits plus investigation roll, difficulty 6. You are on mute, incidentally, if you were intending to be talking.
I rolled 6 dice and got 5 successes.
Well, then you kind of crouch down by the back of this, counter, and you immediately just reach up and grab the sawn-off shotgun that's like duct tape to the underside of the counter. And if you want, you can just wrench that off and have that.
I think no. Yeah, I'm going to take it.
Okay. As you do so, this brings you kind of in the eye line of that small television showing the news report. It seems to be playing the local news, which is dominated by reports of the police and fire departments swarming to a manufacturing plant on the other side of the city due to an explosion, which seems to have no kind of assigned reason yet. There are dizzying shots from the helicopters kind of wheeling overhead, showing the building still on fire. Glowing pillars of flame on the small screen, enough to inspire a slight sense of unease in you. The voices of the reporters seem sort of almost sickly excited and fascinated in a peculiar way as they observe kind of the unfolding of this devastating event. But it is clearly something that has happened in Cincinnati.
Jeez.
Joan, are you are you just? I'm kind of picturing you standing there, just kind of like.
Pretty much, yeah. I think probably not having gone in fully just yet, and after a couple of minutes, we'll probably just call back in and say, "Look, if there's been some trouble, will the police be coming? Do we need to get out of here?"
Well, he didn't grab his weapon. He probably didn't, or she hit an alarm.
Do they have a panic button? Has it been activated?
You did not find a panic button underneath that counter.
I think this is the panic button, and I gesture with the weapon.
More effective.
In the world of darkness, certainly. Let's briefly. Sorry, no, you finish. No, you finish your dialogue, and then we'll cut away to Fen.
This isn't a robbery. This is weird.
Yeah. For a start, where's the rest of this person? And that's a big mess for someone who just wanted some cash.
And on that note, let's circle round to the rear of the gas station where Fen Koval is prowling, still with the appearance of kind of, not a Nosferatu. But you have made your way round to the rear of the building. Behind there is nothing immediately remarkable to see. There is, a couple of bins, a large dumpster, kind of some trash, and kind of where an area of wasteland behind that's been slightly fenced off with some kind of metal wire that's slowly kind of coming apart and decaying over time. There is a back door to the gas station, and it is ajar. Behind it is is some kind of lit room, albeit a light that is flickering slightly.
Okay. I take a quick peek into that room, and then if coast seems clear, I think I'll push through. And
yeah, so you just kind of quickly looking to see if there's anything moved, like anyone obviously in there.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely. There is not.
And like this door would normally be locked, definitely, and like
yes,
someone has probably either.
It says like staff only on the
Does it look like someone's busted in to it, like? Or
it doesn't look broken. Doesn't look broken.
Cool. Okay, I'll head in.
Okay. So, what you're looking at is clearly like a kind of staff room for the workers. Perhaps it has the usual things you'd expect. It has like a kind of bench for them to have a sit on, a couple of like a little table and some chairs, and it's got a rack of lockers along one wall. Specifically, it has 4 of them. All 4 of the lockers look as if they've been crammed shut on bulky things, which are where the metal at points, the very thin kind of cheap metal is buckled around whatever it's been closed on. At least 2 of them, it has not been done successfully. And like you can see some clothes hanging out of one, and on another you can see an arm kind of just poking out of the edge and dangling down. The area at the base of the lockers is very, very covered with blood and fluid, and not very pleasant, and the smell kind of washes over you and there's a sense of kind of sickening at the general kind of gore of it, but also a slight sense of that rich iron taste. On one side of the wall is like a corridor leading off, presumably to other areas at the rear of the store.
So all 4 have been like attempted to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And if the one that you can see that's kind of mostly hanging open is anything to go by,
by.
there are human bodies stuffed in them.
Yeah. Well, might as well just double check. I'll like go
Sure,
up to them
just have a
and
look. Yeah, absolutely.
might be more than one per locker.
Absolutely. Why don't you give me? And you know what? Normally, I guess I might ask for medicine if different beings were doing this. But given your nature as a vampire, why don't you just give me a perception plus alertness roll? I think is fine.
Perception plus alertness. That is 2 dice. So
It's just difficulty 6.
Cool. 7 and 8. So 2
Lovely.
successes.
Yeah. So all 4 lockers are full of dead human bodies, as you might imagine, in various states. Honestly, of would disrepair be the polite way of putting it? One of them is missing a hand. Another one has, you kind of wrench kind of the door open with a pull, and like a head bounces out and skitters along the floor by your feet. So a great deal of unpleasant, violent force has been applied to these individuals. At least one of them, and because you've seen this before, which is why you don't need a medicine roll as you would if you were maybe a werewolf or a mage or a mortal or anything. At least one of them, you would put money, has been drained dry.
But not all. There's at least
Not
one
all
of them.
4.
Okay, so there.
You like after looking at you'd say maybe 2 of them are drained dry. It's also worth noting that one of them is in what appears to be a gas station worker's clothes, and the others are just in varied random.
Maybe were customers, possibly.
Yeah, that would be your immediate assumption, I guess. Yeah.
If any of them still, I think seeing this, I'm kind of like a little bit, and then I'm like, and I go for a taste and see if they're fresh.
Sure. Before you do that, I'm going to ask you to roll something.
Okay.
And if you succeed, I'll give you the thought that occurs to you. If you don't, I won't.
Good.
Why don't you give me a self-control roll?
Okay. What
difficulty 6. It's under virtues.
Virtues.
Middle right.
I have 3, so I will roll those 3. I rolled 5, 1, 9, so that would be 1 success.
I don't think it would be, because 1s remove successes.
Okay. Wisdom.
So there we go. Yep. No, go ahead.
Yep. I bite into one of the.
Sure. It's worth noting that vampires don't particularly like dead bodies like dead blood to drink from, but part of this is that you're testing how fresh they are, right? So if they're recently dead, it's not as good, but it'll do, and that is the case with this one. You would say this person has been dead for maybe half an hour or so, and the blood is probably pretty much still good to take. Are you going to drink fully from this body, or are you just trying to have a taste?
I'm like they're dead. I'll try and drink fully from the body.
Go ahead and fill yourself up. I think you've got three empty blood points you can fill up on, right? Yeah, go for it. I'm assuming because one of the things that vampires can do in the world of darkness is, as they finish feeding, with a simple lick of their tongue, they can close over a wound like it's never been there. I'm assuming you're doing the same. And as you're doing the same, it occurs to you. No, that's fine. Actually, it's fine. No.
Nothing occurs to you.
Nothing occurs to you.
Nothing ever occurs to Fen Koval.
Yeah. In any of your actions during this, have you been trying to be quiet and stealthy?
I was, but then I encountered the body and I sort of forgot about being stealthy.
And I think we said you wrenched open the door of the locker,
I think I
right?
had to.
Okay. I think it's safe to say that the other 3 have heard noises. The noises you would associate with Fen Koval, they weren't sealed shut, but which is why I didn't ask for a strength roll or anything, but kind of like a jammed 4 jammed locker doors being wrenched open. So it's up to you guys. What might you have done at this?
Okay, yeah, I'll come in probably while Fen is feeding and just go, oh, Jesus, Fen. What?
Well, you won't, just because there is more before you reach that room.
Oh no.
But are you assuming that the noises are Fen and therefore heading in?
I'll go towards it, yeah.
Okay. Cole, Joe?
I was also heading towards it, holding the shotgun.
Sure.
I think before I head anywhere, I will take another kind of quick look around to see if it looks like there is anybody else in the vicinity. And I mean, like, it sounds like from there was only one person in a uniform. Are there other cars here? Is there any other kind of sign of life like that at all?
No, not at the moment. This is a quiet area of the city, partly because it's so dilapidated and abandoned. And currently, you've seen like a car or two go past outside, but nothing's pulled in. No one's really walking around the place. It's very quiet.
Okay. I'll head out around the back to kind of follow where I thought Fen had gone.
Sure.
Rather than heading in and on camera.
Absolutely. In that case, we'll pick up with Cole and Natalia as you enter, presumably stepping over that severed hand lying on the ground. You find yourself in a relatively short corridor, sort of leading sort of left to right from where you walk in, right? So it's kind of, it's going. Yeah, I don't need to explain it any more than that. You understand. To your right is a closed door that has manager written on it. Down the far left end of the corridor, you can see an open door to a flickering staff room. You can see Fen. You can see what Fen is doing, and you can see what Fen has found, albeit obviously not as close up as he's done it. There is also another closed door kind of part way along the corridor to like your right as you're going down it. So sort of if you're standing in the doorway from the main, like the store area of the gas station, there's the manager's room to your right, there's the staff room with Fen to the far left, and a little way towards the left and on the door on the wall ahead of you there is another closed door which has nothing written on it.
Okay, I revert to my previous comment of Jesus, Fen, what was this all you?
I look up and they were dead when I found them.
Okay.
They don't mind.
Is it immediately obvious to me that a couple of them are drained dry already as well?
Not from this distance, not unless you kind of go and join.
I'll go closer and have a look then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just looking at Fen's. Oh no, you're Humanity 5. No, that's fine. I was going to see if we should challenge Fen's humanity for drinking from corpses. I think at Humanity 5, not so much. Like you say, you're not harming anyone, right? So, yeah. You can go join him. And yes, it is immediately apparent to you, kind of two of the bodies look like normal human bodies after, a short amount of time. The other two are kind of pale and drawn, and there is very little blood splattered in the kind of in the lockers around them. You can feel free to make a more detailed investigation if you wish. Fen was kind of doing that, but also he got a bit distracted. So,
yeah. Well, under my breath, as soon as I see that two of them are like drained dry, and the entire gas station is covered in blood, I'm just going to like mutter under my breath, "Someone's in trouble."
They are. Holly, why don't you share with us why someone is in trouble?
Well, the masquerades, you're not meant to be obvious about draining the blood of people.
Absolutely. And if you are you kind of looking over these bodies a bit more?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't you give me? And again, I'm not sure. You're not looking over them kind of biologically and medically, are you? You're just kind of examining.
No, I'm looking
them
for
broadly.
the obvious signs. Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's have a perception plus investigation roll from you then, please. And again, difficulty 6.
Cool. That is 3 successes. Wonderful.
So they are much as you'd imagined. Kind of Fen is still kind of clamped onto one of them. As I described before, they have been exposed to shocking physical force and violence. You can't find any kind of bullet wounds or anything like that on them. I'll tell you what you do find, though. On the 2 drain dry, you find teeth marks. So whatever kindred did this, didn't even bother.
They have been real messy. Okay.
To seal the wounds. Yeah, this is real messy. And while we contemplate that thought, Joan, I'll have said that you can kind of be at the back door now, and you can see kind of Natalia and Fen in there. And we'll rejoin in a second, so the 3 of you can kind of contribute to that. Cole, what are you doing while this is going on?
I was starting with the near left door, which is on the way to the staff room. Yes,
correct. Yeah.
I was going to try the door and see if there's anyone left alive.
It is open, and there is someone in there, and they are not alive. So what you open the door on is kind of a storage room of some kind. It has kind of 2 big racks of shelves on either side and boxes, and kind of like all the different food supplies and various cleaning supplies for like the employees to clean up the place and stuff like that. But that is not what your eye is drawn to. What it is drawn to is another gas station employee who is impaled into the ceiling on a length of iron pipe that has been rammed through their body and left them dangling there like some kind of grotesque pinata. There is a pool of blood underneath the end of that iron pipe, and there is still like a trickle slightly of blood dripping from the end of it. I mean, the individual is very dead. Like, they're not kind of they're not suffering anymore or anything like that. But yes, whatever did this obviously took some kind of supernatural strength to do, and is also, say it with me, a massive breach of the Masquerade. Yes.
I'm going to back out and close the door, and then try the door to the manager's office.
Sure. The door to the manager's office is locked. Doesn't look sturdy.
Can I give it a bit of a test shove?
Is your test shove attempting to break it open?
My test shove is seeing how loud it'll be to break it open. I guess there's no one around.
It does not seem very sturdy. You don't think it would be very loud. You don't think it would be heard outside of the station itself.
I'm going to give it a shove.
Okay. Why don't you give me a strength plus athletics roll? Difficulty, let's say difficulty 7. And while you do that, let's hop back to that staff room and Joan walking in on the scene of Natalia examining the bodies and Fen probably like wiping.
Taking that in and seeing it, I'll just look at Fen and say, "You're a fucking fool, Fen," and like walk to the other end of the room and say, There's cameras. There's got to be tape somewhere. We've got to. Yeah.
This wasn't all Fen. Someone is in trouble. Someone's very in trouble.
Well, you're all on camera.
Let's make that not be us.
We are in trouble.
Let's make that not be us.
Okay.
And I'm going to go and look for the security cameras.
Absolutely. Your 3 successes. Yeah, on that note of talking about security cameras, with a sharp crack, the door gives way. You 3 kind of hear it, and Cole shoulders his way into the manager's office. There's a small desk, there's a computer, and there is it's kind of like a small little security monitor by the computer. Both computer and security monitor are turned off. And the room is dark, but has a light you can turn on.
Turned off as in seemingly not recording, or turned off as in just like the screen's
It's turned off. The screen is off.
Okay.
Assuming we kind of come across Cole, we'll start looking for whatever it looks like in the room, wherever it seems sensible that tapes might be kept.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to ask two of you to make a roll at this point because I feel like you're. I want to help you because this group, incidentally, I didn't mention it at the beginning. We have a group who's with a very varied level of familiarity with like the world of darkness, and basically what I want to do is back up maybe a couple of us who aren't so familiar. I want to make roles for notions that may occur to your characters that might not have occurred to you. Does that make sense? So Natalia and Joan specifically, because they've been the two to go, this is bad shit. I would like you both to roll intelligence plus etiquette, please. Difficulty 6. It's a straightforward leap to make, which I'm not putting on your characters, not on you. 2 successes. Joan? Don't forget that ones cancel out successes.
Oh, so 5 successes plus a 1. So
that's 4 successes. Yeah. Natalia.
One of those successes was a 10. If that means anything.
It doesn't, but well done. So Natalia, and I'll split this out between you because I think that's enough difference that you'd have had different thought processes on this. Natalia, you this is very bad. As Joan rightly said, 3 of you are on, well, 2, maybe 3 of you are on security cameras on this. Your fingerprints and all kinds of shit are bound to be all over this. Like, maybe you'll get away with it scot-free if you just cover it up, but you do not want you guys to be linked to this, no matter how innocent you are. So maybe there's some kind of formal thing that can be done about it, like that, so you can make sure people know it wasn't you. Joan, 100% someone needs to get in touch with the sheriff as absolutely soon as possible. The sheriff is the lawmaker and lawgiver of a camarilla city. The person who deals with breaches of the tradition, and the Masquerade is the most sacred tradition of the camarilla. If he finds out about this, like, even if he knows you didn't do it, if he knows you knew about it and didn't tell him, you would be in trouble. Real trouble.
I'm like trying to remember now 1995 when mobile
technology
phones
levels,
things,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. This is
no, most people don't have mobiles. There are mobiles, and some people might have them. You definitely do not have you don't have a mobile phone or a car phone, as they were called back then, and you even if Sheriff Diamond has one, you do know the name. He's called Diamond. You don't know of it. But maybe someone in your coterie does know someone who might, or maybe you know someone who might. And you know what? There's a payphone outside, and there's also a phone. Not that you've particularly seen it at this point, I guess, but there's a phone on the manager's desk as well. And you will, back in the day, folks, people remembered people's phone numbers. So you can call whoever you want.
Yeah, do we know where Sheriff Diamond would be generally of a night to try?
No, you'd have no idea. Probably the only times you've seen him have been at like formal kindred functions at Elysium. You haven't had any kind of social contact with him at all.
Would there be a number for the Chantry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, you can call the Chantry.
I was about to suggest calling the Elysium, but yeah, Chantry works fine.
Yeah, I think it seems we're in the room and was looking for tapes anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, see if there is anything, but yeah, we'll then kind of and we'll say that we'll head out and call the Chantry.
Well, if you want to call them, I'm going to start looking for a way to like get the tape out and start. It's probably a VHS tape or something, so I'm going to start unreeling that.
Well, before we start leap into action here, Joan, are you going to mention any of this to Fen and Cole, just because I can imagine different reactions or anything like that, or are you kind of just taking the initiative, walking out and calling the Chantry?
I think it was to say to Natalia, I think Joan would be very careful not to have been touching anything. She's not going to stop to mess with. I think she's kind of just obviously, she's there, but she's not been touching or looking, picking things up and stuff. But yeah, I think we say to Natalia, get the tapes, and then we'll head back out the way she came again to avoid any cameras and stuff. And say, I'm calling the Chantry. but that'll be it. Just quite brusque and straight out to the payphone. I think she'll probably take out a little handkerchief and everything, even for like the payphone, wipe it down a little bit before touching it, and avoiding fingerprints, but also getting rid of the ick of a public payphone.
You're on mute.
You are muted, Matt.
Sorry. Cole and Fen, what kind of reactions do you have to this exchange between Joan and Natalia?
She's calling, well, I guess the Chantry are as good as any.
Going to be handed over to authorities at some point. Better ours than...
I might
Yes.
also make a quick call. I wouldn't want it all, like there's certain principles.
What?
Did I notice the bite wounds in the other people in the thing?
I think we didn't make a roll for you after you drank. If you carried out any kind of further examination after you drank, I think it's safe to say, or maybe Natalia pointed them out to you. So I think it's kind of,
I think it. How stupid am I? I think it probably would occur to me that I probably can help. Like, Joan's mad at me. I'm feeling like a little bit of a bad thing. So I'll do my best to like cover up the vampiric stuff that I've seen now that she's pointed out that like there's a masquerade breach.
As in kind of cover it up with clothes, or
as in lick the wounds that were not mine?
No, only the wound. I believe it's only wounds that you have inflicted that you can seal shut, I'm afraid.
Shit. Okay, well in that case, I will not do that. I will You said that there was like a rough area outside.
Yeah, like a kind of little wasteland patch.
How late at night is it? Is it particularly like busy?
No, it's you're actually fairly close to sunset having happened. It's about 9:30 in the evening. Sunset at about 9 o'clock.
All right. I'll just say I think I should go and bury these bodies. Just as a way of hiding them, basically, is my intent.
Sure.
Until the sheriff shows up, because I can't dispose of these bodies in a way that is,
sure,
not masquerade breaching.
While you set about that, what is Cole doing?
So, hang on, is your plan to bury the bodies?
My plan is to, just basically take them out to that wasteland area and like conceal them as best I can temporarily while we in case somebody shows up, right? Like, and discovers like a masquerade breach is much less bad, like a mass murder is much less bad than like a masquerade breach, right? That's my
True.
idea.
I'm trying to...
I might get in trouble for
just
this.
Mangle the bodies up a little bit more to make it look...
Joan will have
shove them in.
If she sees Fen dragging bodies out while she's making the call. So if it comes to that, Joan will have a reaction.
Sure.
Okay. I'll start dragging the bodies.
I was gonna maybe just put a hand on your shoulder and say, I think whoever the sheriff will probably want to see it. Why don't you just go close all the doors? Flip the closed sign on the front.
Are you sure? Joan, she was real mad at me, I think, because I didn't share any of the blood with her. I just wanted to make it up. Okay, I trust you, Cole. I trust you. And I'll put the bodies down and start like going around, sort of trying to remove traces of.
Absolutely. And closing the doors and things like that. Sure, that seems valid. So Joan, you have headed out the front. I think you said you were going to the payphone out front, right, rather than the manager's phone. It's just kind of like, it's an American payphone. We've all probably seen them in movies and stuff. There's no kind of case around it. It's just like a rough metal pole, and then it's put on there and with a little hood, and you can pull it out and talk on it. Yeah, and while we get this image of Joan doing this, why don't you tell us what Joan is dressed in?
So Joan is wearing a dark grey pantsuit. She's looking like quite the working woman, quite severe looking. She has like this little, like just this very tiny, like neat little purse. It can probably just about fit in like, keys and a handkerchief kind of, but like, just the tiny little things she'd need. She's looking quite like sharp and professional. And probably quite unlike the rest of the group.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. So, you are just dialing the chantry, I believe. And why don't you, and I can do it if you don't have the notes with you, but why don't you tell everyone where the chantry is in Cincinnati? And you are on mute, should you...
That's fine. I was just going,
That's
pulling up notes. If it is top of your mind, I'm sure you would do a better job of describing that.
That's absolutely fine. It is in the Mount Lookout Observatory, also just known as the Cincinnati Observatory, or specifically in kind of tunnels and structures beneath the observatory. Yeah, absolutely. You call the number, which is obviously there is a number for the observatory, and then there's a number that Tremere are given to call for the observatory. And you call it, and it does not ring very long before it is picked up, and a woman's voice you're unfamiliar with, likely one of the few ghouls who work in the chantry, under the chantry head, answers and says, "Good evening. What is the issue?"
I need to speak with Fugues. This is Joan.
I will just see if she's available. One moment. There's like a click, and there's not hold music, but I don't think the Tremere would use hold music. But after not too long, maybe 60 seconds or so, the phone is picked up, and you hear Fugue's voice on the other end of it, kind of peremptory and distracted as usual, saying, "Joan, yes, what can I help you with? What's the matter?"
We need to get in touch with the sheriff. There's been a situation. We're at a gas station and I'll give whatever the address was.
Mm-hmm.
We discovered it empty, but other vampires have been here and they've left a bloody awful the complete breach of the Masquerade. We need a cleanup job here.
Oh, that's inconvenient. Are you at a payphone?
Yes.
Stay by it. I'll just stay by it. I'll deal with it. Click.
If I can sort of, I'll hang it back up again, wipe down, put my little hanky back. If anyone is looking through, I'll just keep an eye. Again, I'll do like a little sweep, make sure there's no one around. I'll stay by the like literally right by the payphone, and I'll just keep an eye on the sort of mini mark bit to see if I can catch anyone's attention at all.
Sure, absolutely.
If anyone sort of comes back out or kind of through the glass bit again, but otherwise I'll just stay put.
Absolutely. So you're doing that. Fen is kind of closing the doors and flipping the close sign on. Everyone who's kind of spent a decent amount of time in that front area kind of seen that like kind of news report going on now. So you are aware of apparently other dramatic events in Cincinnati. Natalia, I think you were trying to find like where essentially the security footage was actually stored.
Yeah, exactly. And then dispose of it, or at least take it out.
Sure, absolutely. Why don't you give me an intelligence plus technology roll, please? Difficulty 7, I'd say.
That's 4 successes.
Absolutely. So you basically kind of have a quick look around. It seems like a very cheap security system. And after having a look around, you realize the monitor itself probably has the tape inside it. You have a look around the back, and hey presto, there is a little port. You can see it. You can see it spinning. Like you can see it recording. Super cheap, super disposable. And you can just look over and see, that is the tape, and it undoubtedly has footage of everything that's happened here tonight.
Okay.
Earlier stuff.
It does occur to you. I think you were within, kind of like you were definitely within earshot of Cole when he said to Fen that it was a dumb idea to get rid of the evidence before the sheriff arrived.
Yeah,
It's up to you what you do with that.
Part of me just wants to destroy the evidence, but I'm also aware that if I do that, I'm probably going to get in quite a lot of trouble.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, I'll at least stop the recording, and I'll take the tape out and then go outside. I'll make sure that the lights are off in the actual gas station, so it doesn't at all look like anyone's
Sure.
in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it obvious that you have the tape on you?
Yeah, I'm holding it in my hand.
So shall we find out who made this mess?
I'm going to leave that to the sheriff. Personally, I don't want to know anyone who has done that, because that puts me in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
And I'm already in enough.
I accept that does sound quite dangerous. Do you mind if I look at that tape for a second?
Fen, keep your hands to yourself.
They're kind of bloody, and I'm like, oh.
Natalia,
Yeah.
if you hand over the evidence to the sheriff and no one else has seen it, what's to stop the sheriff from saying there's anyone on that tape?
You can look at it if you want, but I'm scared it'll be someone that I know.
And you wouldn't want to know that it's them?
Look, how about this?
Plausible deniability is the best excuse.
If it's someone that you know, we won't tell you.
But fine, and I'll hand the tape to Cole, not Fen.
Okay. Outside, Joan, a couple of people have kind of pulled up, like a car pulled up at one point and then kind of paused for a few seconds and then drove off again after looking at, like, because you saw Natalia come through and, like, after Fen had closed everything up, kind of turn all the lights off. And you've seen someone kind of pull up, pump some gas, turn around and walk over and kind of go, oh, and then kind of shrug and get back in their car and drive off. So clearly, yeah, it seems to be doing a decent enough job of kind of convincing people. Okay. In the back, Cole, what are you doing with that tape?
Assuming the monitor has like a playback function.
I mean, it almost certainly does, yeah. It's
then
another thing whether you can figure it out or not.
Well, I'm gonna give it a try.
Give me an intelligence plus technology roll. Difficulty 8, please. It's not the most straightforward system, and I doubt you've used small this kind of disposable security monitor before. If you can argue that you might have done, then go for it.
I mean, so Cole spent most of his life doing manual labor and fairly menial jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be a could I argue that maybe he's had to do a night shift as a security guard at some point?
Yeah, you can do. In which case, I'll bump it down to 7.
Okay, I'm rolling 3 dice. Ooh, 1 cancels my success, so nothing.
But not a botch. That's good.
Not a botch.
You didn't destroy the tape.
No.
So no, you can figure out how to put it back in the the port where it comes from, but you can't figure out how to turn on actually wind it back and play it.
Right.
I'm afraid. So Joan, out front, someone has kind of walked up. Driven up and pulled in. They filled kind of their tank, and they stepped out, saw kind of the opening, saw the doorway and it being turned off and everything like that, and has kind of is walking up and kind of looking around and starting to like tap slightly on the doorway and stuff.
I would probably come out at that point if
sure.
I was going to say, if I saw someone starting to get close enough to that, being like keeping an eye, I think I'd have just said, "It's closed. You might as well go home."
It's a guy who like kind of looks over his shoulder at you and says, "I've got to pay." Bang, bang, bang.
Chuck something at the door if you really want, but there's no one in.
You won't have heard this, Natalia, so have you emerged?
I probably will have done the same as Joan and gone out the staff entrance.
Right, okay, yeah.
So yeah, I'll emerge from the sides and just like shout at the guy, "It's closed."
Could you give me a manipulation plus performance roll, please? Difficulty 7.
That's 2 botches and no successes. So
I've got to be faster if I want to say that I want to use my dominate on the guy. Do I?
Well, first let's have like let's see what's happened with this roll. He kind of turns to you and says, "It's never closed at this time." Kind of keeps banging. I can see the back light on. Hey, I need to pay. And he's kind of banging on the door. Joan, are you going to do some spookies on this guy?
I'm gonna try. Can I use? Sorry, I'm just double checking what it's called. So I would like to use mesmerize of 2 points in dominate to put the idea in his just to try to put I guess like put that idea in his head that I guess it must be closed.
It's closed and I should go away, basically. Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you give me a manipulation plus leadership roll? And that's going to be a difficulty of his current willpower points, which I'm going to say is, I don't know, 4.
So I've got 4 to beat. Is that?
Yeah, 4 or over is a success.
1, 2, 3, 4 successes, no botches.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Why don't you tell me, because obviously mesmerize is like kind of intended to be like a short little phrase or sentence, and you have to make eye contact. How Joan takes this action.
I think she'll just I think probably drawing a little bit on, like looking a little bit kind of official. I imagine she's probably a bit more smartly dressed than this other guy, just drawing herself up, straightening the back a little bit more, like making sure, wait until she's fully like got his attention, say, "Hey, it's closed, the lights are off, I don't know what to tell you, go home," and just be like a little bit forceful about it, I think. You're on mute.
You're muted.
Go home. Go home. Lights are off. Go home. He kind of turns around, blinking, and walks to his car, and it peels out of the gas station lot. And then the payphone starts ringing.
I will take the time to grab my hanky again to pick it up and answer the phone.
A man's voice that you are unfamiliar with on the other end of the phone says, "Joan."
Sheriff?
Who else is there with you?
Natalia, Fen, and Cole. No one else is here, just the bodies.
Is it shut?
We've closed it. We've turned off the lights.
Is there any threat?
Not immediate, no. Nothing we can see. There's nobody else around. As far as we can tell, it's just us and what's been left behind from whoever else was here before us.
All right. Clean any signs of violence you can find. Normal cleaning supplies will do for now. My agents are stretched thin tonight. Wait. I'll be there soon.
I'll hang it back up and I guess head in through the front this time.
Mhm.
Well, actually, did you lock it, Natalia? Or am I going to like try to?
I think Fen locked the front,
yeah,
and you
Fen-
could
Fen
you
locked
you
it.
found like
Closed,
keys
sorry.
behind the counter easily. We kind of glossed over that, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
Back
Well,
entrance is still open there.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll head back in through the back then when I realise and say I've spoken to the sheriff. We need to clean up what we can with just the cleaning supplies we can find. But then we have to stay here and wait for the sheriff or his agents to come. I'll stay out front and make sure nobody else comes in. You lot clean up in here.
Shall I go and get the shovel?
Wait,
What?
no, clean. Don't dig, Fen.
We have a shovel.
Fen definitely has a shovel in the back of his Cadillac.
Absolutely. It comes in handy for situations like this. You never know when you're going to need a shovel.
Should I actually ask at this point? Has Cole mentioned the man impaled to the roof to the ceiling in the storage room to anyone?
Not yet, but I am going to point towards the door and say there is a mess in there that we are not going to be able to clean up.
Yeah, I'm going to go through the door and then just like immediately close it again. Just go, nope, not doing that one. And I'm just going to start moving the bodies that are
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Scattering.
Sure. So Jones out the front and everyone else is so basically, he's asked you to clean it. Like I said, there's various blood splatters. There's a severed hand just lying on the floor. And there's like obviously the front of the market is in some disarray. That sounds like 3 jobs to me. Like the blood splatters and kind of securing the bodies a bit and the body bits, and tidying up the front area. So who is taking what out of that?
Well, I was going to unimpale the guy.
Okay.
Best I could.
If you think you can do it, yeah. And then so you're kind of dealing with the bodies then, I guess.
Seems like I'm a very trustworthy person to deal with the bodies.
So what are you doing with the bodies? Like, are you removing them from the lockers and kind of storing them together in some fashion?
I think I'm stacking them in the lockable room and then
in the manager's office.
Yeah.
Although you can do, but there's not a lot of room in there, and the doorway has been forced. Yeah.
Yeah.
The storage room has a lockable door. It's just not locked.
I will go for that one then. That sounds ideal.
Okay. Who is cleaning up the blood splatters?
Fine.
Wanna?
That'll just be a prolonged look. I mean, sure. To
be fair, Natalia, you're probably very familiar with cleaning supplies because you're an artist.
Yeah.
I mean, not because artists can't get fancy jobs. I mean, like, for cleaning canvases and whatever.
Yeah. No, I'll probably just like dump the hard stare at Cole and then just go, oh, fine. And then, but I'm going to shout Bagsy the mop because, trying to clean.
You'll need it.
So Cole, on the other hand, you're just kind of tidying up and trying to get all those displays back standing and stuff like that. Yeah. No one mentioned turning off the news reports. So that's still blaring, but it's with no intention, kind of disparity to our American friends. American news reports have a tendency to go on. I think we can agree and kind of just they have news channels, right? And it's just keeps going on and on and on, and mentions a lot about how it's a bad day for Cincinnati, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of indication of why this explosion has happened yet. There have been casualties, and it seems like a bad scene.
I'm gonna keep an eye on it as I'm fixing the displays, and I'm around the front.
Sure.
And
you don't kind of hear or see anything. Just in case you're thinking this is me heavy-handedly inserting clues, you don't see any kind of thing that seems related to this situation.
No, but also, I don't know if this is me or Cole, but if there's something bad happening in the city and no apparent cause behind it, especially slightly paranoid, Cole might assume it's some kind of politicking going on. And
that is a very reasonable assumption to make. Yeah. Kindred obviously try and stay quiet with the Masquerade, but sometimes also they don't. So yeah, absolutely. Let's have a couple of rolls here. I don't think Cole needs a roll to try and like put all the stuff back up. But we need 2 rolls here. I think we need a roll from Natalia on how well she cleans up this goddamn mess. And let's have, for that roll, I don't know. Your choice here of wits or dexterity, because I think it's a job you can either do on autopilot or not. And let's combine that with, I don't know. Alertness? Because it's not really the demand of like cleaning a bloodstain. It's that it's getting everything, I think. So alertness goes well with that. It's just a 6, but let's see how you do. As for Fen, I think the challenging thing here, it's not too much of a pain for you to drag those bodies and body parts through to the storage room and kind of heap them on each other. What is getting that guy unimpaled from the roof. So if you're going to do that, I'm going to need a strength plus athletics roll from you. However, I am aware you do have potence, vampiric strength. And how that works in this 20th edition is your dot in potence becomes another dot in strength for you to roll. Or if you want, you can spend 1 blood and change that extra die of strength to a guaranteed success. So it's up to you which one of those you do.
I'll try and just use it as an extra die.
Sure, and just kind of wrench that, because the iron pipe is the only thing holding the guy there. So if you manage to dislodge that, then he will come tumbling down. So why don't you give me a roll there? I think that's going to be difficulty 7. Natalia, how did we do on the cleaning roll?
3 successes from me.
Lovely. Were we expecting a cleaning roll in this inaugural episode of Vampire the Masquerade? Maybe not. It's what we had, nevertheless. Yeah, Natalia, you're pretty confident you've got everything. There were a number of large blood pools and patches and sprays on the wall, including that large one that looks like someone's maybe jugular got ripped. But you've managed to fairly well clean them all, and together with Cole, you've got that kind of store area at the front looking at least fairly acceptable. Fen, how did you do with your strength roll there?
So it was difficulty 7, so that means I got a 7 and a 10, which were successes, but then I got 2 1s, which I assume cancel them out.
They do indeed cancel them out, and you're there kind of like wrenching on this. It's just not budging. Someone rammed that up into the ceiling real hard. John?
Unless you have a specialty in either of the things you rolled.
I don't think
I don't think he does.
So if you have a specialty,
he does have a strength of 4.
I do.
So he should have a speciality. Do you want to take a speciality in something like this? Like kind of I don't know, what would we have? Like kind
Tug of war.
Yeah, but like kind of athletic, sort of like, I don't know what you'd call it.
Can I have a speciality in stunts?
Yeah, or like just kind of acts of strength.
Yeah,
or something. I don't know.
Like it's too early for CrossFit, isn't it?
It is too early for CrossFit, thankfully. So
in lifts,
the options that the book gives are never lets go, powerful arms, reserves of strength, and vicious. But you can have other ones. Strong grip. There's a good one.
Sure. Yep. Let's go for that.
So in that case, John, how does that affect things with specialities?
If you have a speciality in anything you roll, then 10s count for 2 successes. So you would effectively you've had 3 successes, 2 cancelled.
Yeah, marginal success at 1 success. It takes you a while, and you have to kind of like get a good firm grip on this pipe and kind of wrench it backwards and forth, which makes some very unpleasant sounds and leaves kind of your shoulders and the side of your face sort of dripping with, some of it's blood. And then eventually there's kind of a pop as some of the concrete in the ceiling above gives way. And the man and the pipe kind of come down at you on once. And given the marginal success, I think it's safe to say you don't catch them. And they're kind of maybe sent sprawling slightly. But he's down.
Got it under control.
Very
That's
believable. Very believable.
Yep.
So this takes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so to carry all this out. Joan, no one has been kind of like trying to pull up still. A couple of people have walked past, but haven't really, looked, it's just a darkened gas station. It's fine. You can see kind of like your coterie mates sort of tidying up in the front, and as they're kind of wrapping this up, a black BMW pulls into the lot outside. It does not pull up to a gas pump, and it idles there for a moment.
Do I recognize it at all, or
No?
I think I'll probably stop and stay where I am and just watch for a moment.
Sure. The engine shuts off and a man emerges, a rather large gentleman, a black man with he looks like maybe in his mid-30s, but with a very youthful, almost cherubic face and closely cropped hair. He's wearing a tight grey shirt and black jeans that go some way to accentuating. He's not a huge guy, but he is very well muscled indeed. And he steps out very calmly, very slowly, looks around the street, and really, when you get the sense that someone's very much taking in their surroundings, not just kind of glancing. And he does that a couple of times, and then his gaze kind of falls onto you, and he paces forwards, kind of like clicking the button on his car, which seals itself with a kind of little blip of noise. He walks up to you and says, "Are the others inside?"
Yes, cleaning up, as you said.
Take me in.
I recognize the voice.
It is indeed the man. This is presumably Sheriff Diamond.
Yeah.
It's up to you whether you have seen him before in Elysium. Probably none of you have interacted with any degree. You haven't been in trouble. But you probably... It's very likely that anyone who's spent considerable time in Cincinnati knows him by sight. Take me in.
I think I probably won't say anything. I'll just nod and head towards the back and lead him in through that way.
He kind of steps through the back. Where is everyone at this point? Are people kind of like, when they hear Joan coming in with someone, are they going to kind of...
I'm picking up the body, probably, trying to...
right, yeah, kind of putting it with the others, sort of
yeah.
thing. Yeah. I'm
trying to recover from that thing.
Sure.
I'm still probably working on the ceiling splatter. I've probably found a really tiny step ladder that isn't quite tall enough.
Sure, yeah. I'm just trying to get that last bit. Cole, what about you?
I was torn between offering to take over the ceiling splatters from Natalia because I'm taller than her, and keeping an eye on Fen to make sure he doesn't, I don't know, throw one of them out the window or something.
So he steps into that kind of the staff room. Joan, are you locking the door behind you? Or closing it too, or, at least...
I think Hanky's still out. I'll close it behind me. I probably haven't got keys or anything for it.
No, probably someone else has the keys.
So, yeah, I'll just close it behind me. Yeah.
He kind of looks behind and says, "Close it, lock it."
Who has keys?
I'll throw
probably
over the
Fen,
keys,
I think,
to Joan, I guess.
Yeah, you're just round the corner, right?
Yeah, so I'll pop out
in the other room. Do you think
keys.
You might be still holding the pipe?
Yeah, let's say I just threw the body in just as they were coming in, and I was picking up the pipe and carrying it in.
Sure, yeah.
I will let the keys fall to the ground and then bend over and pick them up with the hanky and wash off the inevitable blood and muck, whatever that Fen's left on them before locking the door.
Diamond kind of opens and shuts the lockers a little bit, kind of just examining them, looking around. You've cleaned, obviously, most of the blood and gore off this. You probably haven't... It's probably still there at least a little bit because there was a lot of it. But still, it's mostly at least a little bit more pleasant. He looks around and kind of looks at Fen, kind of standing there with the pipe. Kind of his gaze follows to like the upper part of it, which is kind of like just smeared in bits of blood and flesh. And his eyebrow kind of just raises slightly. He walks over to where you are. Are you like? It's a very tight corridor. Are you kind of getting out of his way?
I mean, I'm a big guy.
You're quite a big guy, aren't you?
I think I'll, I'm not gonna budge unless he seems to be like pushing me out of the way. But we'll see.
He comes to a stop in front of you and he's kind of staring at you, kind of expecting you to move out of his way.
Okay then, and I let him past.
He takes a step forward and kind of looks in the storage room, which presumably has all those bodies like piled up in one corner of it. Takes a pace in, looks at them, takes them in a little bit, kneels down, examines them, pays particular attention to the two that look to have been drained. And you can see his fingers kind of like walking along the pale flesh until he finds those puncture marks left there, which he pulls the skin taut to examine. And anyone close enough, and it's up to you guys if you've kind of like migrated towards around where he is. Joan and Fen presumably near him already, but anyone near him will hear a kind of noise as he sees the puncture marks. He stands up, glances up at the kind of pockmark in the concrete roof where you've wrenched that pipe out and the smear of blood around it. Looks down. Where are the other two?
Other two?
Cole and Natalia, presumably, unless you have come through at this point.
Yeah, we'll have. I will also be peering.
They're just around here.
Matt, as he's been kind of inspecting the bodies, and in particular that sort of examining the puncture marks and things, Joan is definitely looking quite sort of interested. Well, not outwardly looking interested, but she certainly is very interested in kind of watching him investigate. Does that just look kind of like normal investigation, or does that kind of strike her as potentially being Tremere blood magic kind of stuff?
Well, you know what? I think that's a call for a roll. Why don't you give me a wits plus awareness roll? The difference between alertness and awareness in this is alertness is more kind of just actual normal, perceptive ability, whereas awareness is more like the sense that supernatural things might be happening or the like. So why don't you give me a wits plus awareness roll for that? Difficulty 7, let's say.
That's 3 successes with 1 botch, bringing it down to 2 successes.
You don't have any general impression that he's using perhaps supernatural abilities, or at least particularly strong ones, to investigate. It just looks like someone generally examining things. And I'll give you another bit more than that. If he was using blood sorcery, thaumaturgy, he would likely be far more interested in the blood itself. Like he might be tasting it or smelling it or something like that. And he doesn't seem to be doing that.
There's no blood around puncture wounds then or anything?
No, all been drained dry, lit clean. So he stands back up. He looks around and he says, Cole, Wolf, have you cleaned?
Best we can.
Show me.
And I'll nod through into the main area.
Mm-hmm. Is everyone parting way for him? Not kind of awkwardly standing there like Koval did, or
Yeah,
getting out of the way.
Okay. It's nice when these anarchistic tendencies feel the need to just back off a little.
I would like to point out, I'm not reverentially.
No. You're just moving out of the way because a person wants to walk past you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas for me, it's I don't like authority, but I'm not going to get in the way of the one who could definitely kill me.
Yeah, sure.
For permanent.
I just wanted to be the big man, but then it was made clear that I was not the big man.
Sure. He walks out into the store and kind of looks around. He paces over to the television where it's playing, briefly glances at it and then switches it off. He kind of walks around, examining for a good 60 seconds or so before he turns around and walks back and says, "That's a very good start. Security camera. Tape.
Manager's office.
He steps, he has it written on the door. He steps over to the side of it, kind of opens, goes over, takes a very brief look at the little kind of monitor that's there, and hits the thing to turn it on, hits the thing to play. He obviously knows his way around this kind of thing, and starts rewinding.
Joan's following, absolutely wanting to see what is on that tape.
Is anyone not doing that? He doesn't seem to be concealing it. In fact, if you're walking in, he's going to tilt the monitor slightly so everyone can get a better look.
Cole is absolutely following him, but he is standing at the back of the room as far away as he can because he left his glasses in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Cole does actually have bad eyesight.
You
just fairly rare for a kindred.
Bought it with the floor, right? So yeah.
I'll be leaning against the wall in the corridor. I'll be able to hear all of it if it's got sound on it.
It does not have sound, I'm afraid.
Okay, in which case I can just catch out of the corner of my eye, but I'm not purposefully paying attention to it.
As it's rewinding, like, it's a very small screen, you know, it's not very big, it's in black and white, and it's quite low quality, so it's pretty tough to see, but you can see like the motion of you all over the last however long, sort of moving around the place and like, you know, tidying things up and the like, and you coming in, and after that it seems basically there's nothing for about half an hour, other than at one point it looks like someone kind of came to the doorway and like opened it and stepped in, and then just closed the door and left very quickly. But then there is like a kind of sort of like activity, just quick activity. And Diamond hits the button and starts pressing play. The footage is very grainy, and as I say, in black and white. There's significant fuzz and artifacting, and like, you know, in that kind of retro way, like lines keep juddering their way down the monitor as you're observing it on this very small screen. In the moments leading up to what happened, you see there are 3 customers kind of just wandering the aisles. Kind of, they look to be together, and they're just kind of picking food off various kind of bits of junk food off the shelves. There's one worker behind the counter, and another one is sweeping up to one side. It's difficult to fully see kind of features, but a handsome man in a long brown raincoat comes in. He immediately kind of looks slightly on edge. You know, he's looking around from side to side and just looking a bit nervous. He walks up to the counter and says something to the cashier. The screen flickers oddly, and everyone standing in the gas station, all 3 customers and the 2 workers, all turn at the same time. They take a step towards the man who's just come in and start speaking. And evidently from kind of the movement of their mouths, it seems to be the same words. They're expressionless. Their eyes look blank, but that could just perhaps be the low quality recording. There is a short beat where the man looks to start panicking, and then he explodes into a blur of furious violence. Most of it happens off camera as the customers and workers scatter, but there is a visible spray of arterial blood, a toppling of a rack of shelves, and a brief glimpse of the cashier stumbling and falling towards the back office in a desperate attempt to escape. All of this has kind of been, because I think I said the manager's office is dark. There's the kind of the flickering light of the staff room, which is probably the only light that's fully on in the gas station now, and all this has been kind of like reflected in monotone or two-tone kind of black and white on your faces as you're watching it. Natalia, because you're kind of like watching a little distance from it and not kind of watching it directly, could you give me, please, a perception plus empathy roll? Difficulty, let's say 8. Actually, I think it's quite challenging.
Okay. Deciding whether I want to use a blood. You know what? Yeah. I'm gonna try and
Um,
raise my my Auspex thing to pay attention
Okay,
to
well, like your
sight.
enhanced senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that so? I don't think that's like a roll or anything. Is it just a blood? I don't even think you have to spend a blood, do you?
I think just generally it helps with my
It
ability
does,
to
yeah.
perceive
You
things.
don't have to spend a blood. You just can turn on your
Yeah.
heightened senses to do it. It just comes with the flip side of then if something loud or like bright happens, you're fucked for a while.
Yeah, but I'm expecting nothing like that to happen. So
Sure,
I'll just be paying attention to
I
sight.
don't think it's massively relevant, but it is at least a little bit relevant. So let's drop it down to difficulty 7, let's say, rather than 8.
Cool.
How about that?
Well, that helps. So that is 3 successes.
Okay, yeah. You do notice, since you're not directly watching the screen, that the sheriff Diamond is watching the events on the monitor with no visible expression on his face. But you do also notice that his eyes occasionally flick to the faces of Cole and Koval and Joan to kind of seem to gauge their reactions.
Okay.
Speaking of, is there any particular visible reaction to the events?
Like I think for Joan, just a minute little frown, just a little sort of thinking, like curious. Yeah, she's assuming she's never seen something like this before. Definitely interested, but always trying to maintain a bit of a poker face.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, who the hell is that guy? Which is equally subtle.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? All right. He stands up, flicks the monitor off, taps the back, and gets the tape from the housing. He turns and says, I need to make a phone call. What I need you to do is to gather up all the parts of those bodies, put them in the dumpster out the back, and incinerate them. He turns and walks down the corridor and out the back staff door.
Oh.
Okay.
You heard him. Move the body parts. I'll find some fuel.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to hold up the empty mop bucket and just say, I'll go get some from the pump.
Very good idea.
Yeah, looks like you're helping with the bodies, Joan.
Look, I'll do the carrying. You just like there'll probably
I'll get
be
the doors.
There'll be a bit of drippage, so
yeah, there will be.
Joan will get the doors.
Sure, I think it's perfectly fine that the three of you. Let's say then if Joan holds open the dumpster and holds open the doors, Koval shifts those bodies. It won't take long. It's not a far distance. They're just hefty. But Koval is a very strong kindred and can carry them with very little issue. Cole, perhaps you can clean up all the mess that it leaves behind.
Yeah.
While Natalia goes and gets some fuel. You can easily get fuel from the pumps. You go around to the back. The body parts are all there. Presumably, the three of you kind of standing at some distance from it. Are you just going to dump in the fuel and then? Does anyone have an easy way to light it?
Well,
is anyone like a smoker or anything like that, or just have some matches on them?
I'll have a lighter on me, but I'm gonna pour most of the fuel on the bodies in the dumpster and then do a little line out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because this won't be the first time that Natalia has set something on fire.
Sure.
Especially with petrol. So yeah, she knows roughly what she's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see the need to roll for any of this. It's all fairly straightforward. You know what we're going to do though? Like I think. While I'm not saying Natalia has underestimated it, because Natalia has probably worked with fuel before and various things, I'd imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, the other three of you are standing a fair way back from this dumpster that's about to be engulfed in flame. Natalia, you've left like a trail successfully, and you know what, you can do that. Although actually, you know what, I will ask you. What will I ask you to do? Just make a little roll for me here. I think. Can you make a roll of? Let's say dexterity plus survival. How about that? but it's going to be difficulty 5.
Okay.
And you said the dumpster is out back, so it shouldn't be visible from anybody who might be.
No, not from the road, not at all. No.
All successes, four successes.
4 successes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if it's 4 successes, then you know what? I was going to have you maybe roll for Rot Shrek, which is a kind of instinctive, frenzy-like fear, like what's called in Werewolf a fox frenzy, which is like when you're just panicked and have to get away. And vampires can go through that when exposed to fire. But with the 4 successes, I'd say you have masterfully left a long trail of fuel and are far enough back that when you set light to it, and the dumpster just kind of erupts with and it has, there's a noise to it. There's a great woomph and the sound of the sides of the dumpster like expanding and then contracting as everything roars into flame. The lid of the dumpster kind of rattles and then slams shut and is just kind of like simmering slightly within the heat and like oxygen moving, in and out as the whole thing just looks. It looks like something from hell, like the flames licking at the edges and the glow as these unfortunate individuals are incinerated inside of the dumpster. So why don't we just go around the group here and have just a little quick chat about humanity and what we just did. So we know that Fens is 5. I don't think you've got a problem with what's just happened. Cole, Natalia, Joan, what are your humanity at?
Like 6.
7.
Okay, now with that, I tend to use, there is a thing called hierarchy of sins within Vampire, which is quite prescriptive, but I prefer to kind of put it on the fly. 7 is bog standard human existence. I think a bog standard average human will be bothered at the notion that innocent people have been murdered and you've just incinerated the bodies, thereby presumably reducing the chance that their families might know what happened to them or things like that. I think anyone with Humanity 7 might be affected by that. So let's just have a look quickly at our cheat sheet. Does our cheat sheet include Humanity Loss, John?
I think it's got the quick reference at the back for like what
Okay.
page it's on.
Well, how about you look up humanity and you tell me if I'm getting it wrong, because I'm going to talk about it like it's in previous editions, and we'll see if that tallies up with how 20th edition works. So what you would do in previous editions is you would roll your conscience, and that conscience is set at a difficulty relative to the horribleness of the act you've just committed. And if you fail that conscience roll, your humanity goes down. And if you succeed, then you feel guilty and it's fine. Obviously, other than that, you're guilty. So I assume it still works in that way. And John is not contradicting me as he reads it. So presumably it's something similar to that. So let's go ahead and do that. And if it does differ slightly, we can retcon it later. I'm going to say that's probably a fairly standard difficulty. I'm not interested in raising or lowering it. So anyone who had that Humanity 7, if you can roll your conscience at difficulty 6, please.
1 success, 1 fail for me.
Okay.
1 success.
Okay. Obviously, I'm again assuming that is the system in the 20th edition, but John seems to agree broadly.
That if you pass, you feel bad and don't lose humanity.
Yeah. All good. Right. That is it. Excellent. I remember right. So, both of you probably feel a little odd about what's just happened. How you express that, entirely up to you. As the 4 of you are standing there, Sheriff Diamond kind of returns round the side of the gas station. He kind of takes a couple of steps towards the dumpster and then kind of thinks better of going closer. He tilts his head and says, "All of them." All right. Who has the keys?
I give them to you, Joan.
Joan was opening. Joan was on doors, so yeah, Joan would have unlocked, and we'll have the keys, I guess.
Lock that back door and turn the light off inside before you do.
She will go and do that.
All right. here's what's going to happen. One of you get in my car. The others follow me in yours.
I will follow him without saying anything.
To kind of get in his car with him.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna,
he's not waiting for a response before turning around and walking. He's expecting you to obey his commands immediately. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying that is his response as soon as Joan starts moving.
Yeah, well, under my breath, as soon as Joan starts moving, I'm going to like whisper to Colt, yeah, that's the way that I would prefer it. I don't want to get in that guy's car.
No,
I hope Joan's all right.
she'll be fine.
So he leads you kind of round the gas station back to where your both cars are. He gets into the driver's seat of the BMW. Joan, the passenger seat, the door is kind of unlocks as you walk around it, and assuming you get in, there is no one else in the car. It's just you and Diamond. The other three of you getting in the Cadillac, and
Also, just before I follow him, I will turn to whoever is closest to me of Natalia and Cole and chuck them the car keys, because I remember I locked the car.
Oh, yeah.
I would have the keys, so I will chuck them
lovely.
the keys and then follow.
Nice attention to detail. So the other three of you, are you getting in the Cadillac and following? No funny business?
Yeah.
Which one of you is driving?
I'll drive.
Natalia took the seat last time.
Natalia wanted to drive.
It's her turn.
Yeah. The BMW peels out and he drives away down that road, and fairly soon you're leaving North Fairmount, traveling east towards the city centre, but he seems to be trying to kind of skirt around it. In his BMW, he makes kind of no effort to put on the radio or anything like that, and he does not engage you in conversation unless you engage him. Let's hop back to that in a second, but first I'm going to ask the people in the Cadillac, are you putting the country music back on? Are you
If I'm in charge of the radio, it's not being country.
Sure.
It'll probably be something along the lines of, what are we, 95? Yeah, so like some local grunge.
Yeah, grunge, alt rock type stuff. Yeah, now you're talking my language. So absolutely. As you go along, are you having any kind of conversation?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much trouble are we in?
Like a 5.
Okay.
I think as soon as the cop turned up, we were higher than 5.
No, this is a 5. We didn't actually do anything. We just were there.
And you guys didn't recognize that guy in the raincoat, right?
Couldn't really make out his face.
It definitely wasn't easy, but for what it's worth, for any level of recognition you might have, no one recognized him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, me neither. What? I haven't even heard of that sort of thing. That he seemed to be panicking.
Were they talking to him? I couldn't tell if I could make that out.
Yeah.
There definitely seemed something odd about the way they behaved towards him, in that they kind of all spoke to him in unison in some odd fashion.
Matt?
Yes.
Given my presence ability, would I have some idea of whether it was something induced by him on purpose that went wrong?
It's certainly not outside of the realms of possibility. You're not sure, of the extent of vampiric powers at your particular the stage in your unlife. But it doesn't seem, people's presence can influence others to do their bidding. Not usually without. He didn't seem to kind of. He did say something before to the cashier before, so it's not outside the realms of possibility.
Okay.
It just seems strange that they would say something to him that he told them to say, and then, he killed all of them, and then he freaked out. I don't know. It seems it just doesn't make any sense to me.
None of it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, what that guy did was not a good idea. Yeah.
How about in the BMW, Joan? Are you engaging Diamond in any kind of conversation?
Definitely not immediately. I think she's trying her best to be a bit cool by being very business-like, which is cool to Joan. But yeah, I mean, depending on how long the drive is, I think she'll kind of slowly sort of start to think it's probably that this is an opportunity you don't always get, and we'll probably. And I think, yeah, assuming we're driving for at least 5 minutes or so in silence, we'll then say, we'll ask him if he recognized the vampire, the kindred.
He kind of glances over at you and says, "Not any kindred of the city. Not that I know." The traffic as you're kind of hitting the outer edge of the city centre, as he's skirting around it, is starting to get definitely a lot more busy. Particularly, there seem to be a number of emergency service vehicles heading north. As he sees them, Diamond reaches over and kind of flicks on the radio, which is tuned in to the local news. They are talking extensively about the manufacturing plant explosion, and more than that, they're kind of talking, today's a terrible day for Cincy. Kind of, there's this explosion, but also a major library fire in the earlier hours today, and thoughts and prayers to the emergency workers, etc., etc. Very typical kind of local radio. But he listens into that for a while, and then as you skirt around the edge of the city centre to the east side of Cincinnati, he flicks it off again.
I think not like full on like looking at him, but would definitely sort of be angled slightly more towards and just seeing if they're just be kind of interested in his reaction to any of the news that's.
He doesn't seem to show any reaction to any of that. He certainly doesn't seem surprised by it.
Mm-hmm.
He did say earlier that his agents were busy.
Yeah.
So maybe with all that.
Yeah.
You skirt around the city centre, and the Cadillac has very little problem following. It's not a short car trip, but eventually you reach a very different kind of Cincinnati than the one you left. You reach an area called Hyde Park, which is a much more affluent neighborhood. You travel along after a while what almost seems like a country road. It has mini mansions and older large houses scattered along it, lit dimly in comparison to most of the city, and you carry on down there for quite some time. There's very few people around. You see kind of a cop car coming the other way, but kind of slowly patrolling. It's the kind of neighborhood that the cops patrol quite a lot. And there are lights on in various of the large houses as you pass them. Eventually, Diamond reaches a unmarked and unlit gravel path that turns off to the right, and he turns down it. Joan, you can see kind of the lights of the Cadillac presumably turning in unison behind you and starting to drive down this path. Quite a short while later, the path opens up. You've been surrounded all along this path just by, you think, trees and general darkness, but it's quite hard to see out of like kind of the dull windows of the BMW. But the path opens up into a small parking area in front of a large 3-story grey stone building. It has columns fronting it, and the structure is as reminiscent of the kind of a Greco-Roman revival style as it is colonial. A couple of other cars are parked outside, and the building itself seems to be well lit. The BMW pulls up, and Sheriff Diamond, without a word to you, gets out of the car. I'm assuming the three behind are pulling up as this happens.
Yeah, I'll have a quick glance back just to see that they've arrived and they've stopped and they seem to be getting out too, and then again, like wordlessly, just follow the sheriff.
Absolutely. The three of you getting out, and the sheriff is now kind of walking towards the rather large, grandiose entrance to this building. He's not looking back to see if you're following him.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
This.
Gone.
I was just going to say, this seems to me, Pierre, like it's a kindred place, and so I'm probably going to be like skulking until I can confirm that. But like, yeah, I'm not going to immediately be concealing myself.
I think it's worth saying, by the way, if you have like any kind of like hood with your clothes, then like that normally will do, because you are disfigured and monstrous, but like it could easily be you could have someone who's like suffered bad wounds or something like that. So like you will be remarkable to people, but they won't instantly go vampire, so
sure. So I guess I do have the baseball cap, so I'll kind of pull it like tight over my
sure. But yeah, your Mask of 1,000 Faces will have, I think we're past the first scene now, so it will have worn off by this point. Is everyone else following Diamond in and just going along with him?
I was about to ask, have I been here before?
None of you have been here before, remotely.
Okay.
Probably none of you have really spent much time in Hyde Park at all.
I was about to say, I will look exceedingly uncomfortable in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Same.
Joan,
a bit smug, I think, about being in an environment like this.
Maybe. The Chantry is not actually that far from here. Mount Lookout is like a little more out of town than Hyde Park, but along this general trajectory. So you're maybe more familiar with the area than the others, but you certainly have not been here before. So Diamond walks you inside. He nods to a security guard sat at the desk, who glances at you curiously, but without any kind of alarm. There's a metal detector in the center of the room, but he walks to the side of it and taps a little kind of metal key on a sensor, and the little gate opens, and he walks around the metal detector and kind of holds one hand up to indicate you should do the same and follow him through. He then strides forward outside of this quite functional entrance room and on into lush wood-paneled corridors. There are many rooms you walk past with elaborate wooden doors. The occasional one is open, and they reveal what seems to be conference rooms and fairly luxurious office space. Underfoot is a plush and silencing deep purple carpet. You walk all the way down to the end of a long corridor, and do feel free to interject and ask me questions if you want. Yes, while I do this, just so you don't feel I'm just narrating you without any agency. At the end of this corridor is a kind of a large set of stairs with fairly carved wooden banisters with various sorts of like just kind of abstract designs in them. And this leads you up onto a second floor, which definitely seems more elaborate and consciously designed than the bottom floor. In particular, all the kind of wood panels around you seem to have actual kind of designs carved into them. Iconography is various kinds. At various points, there are eagles carved above the doorways, looking down almost like gargoyles. Every now and then on the wall, there is a design of what seems to be a sword and a plough crossed over each other. After a short distance, you pass an open doorway into what seems to be a large two-story room with a great amount of seating set out like a kind of, a tiered amphitheater all around one side of the room, which is facing a podium that strongly represents a judge's seat. Above that seat is a mosaic that has been kind of, moved onto the wall. It shows a man being approached by a group of other men, all of them dressed in historical garb. In fact, if everyone here wants to roll intelligence plus academics, I can give you a bit more information about it. Difficulty, just difficulty 6 is fine.
Wow, I actually managed 2 successes. On
One
3
success.
dice.
1, 2. What did everyone else get?
Me as well.
What did you get, Joan?
Oh, 1 success.
1 success. Yeah, you all recognize that they're wearing Roman, kind of typical Roman gear. The man being approached is wearing a kind of Roman, like a toga, like a tunic, and the others are wearing kind of Roman soldiers' outfits. The man being approached has one hand on a plow that is still digging through the earth, and the other on a sword hung at his hip. Shortly after you pass this, what appears to be a large kind of audience room or courtroom, Diamond leads you to a large set of double doors that are relatively plainly decorated, apart from an inscription carved over them that reads Omnia Reliquit Servare Republicam. Do any of you think you might know Latin? It's fine to say no.
I don't know, I think probably not full on Latin, but along some sort of some studies and
sure, yeah,
upbringing, some
I think that's
familiarity, pick out a few words here and there.
Super reasonable for a Tremere.
The kind of things you hear in law books and stuff, that kind of common
you
Latin.
May very well know this phrase from law books. Why don't you give me again an intelligence plus academics roll?
Could I also roll that? Because Cole's, his degree in part of it was in employment law. So
I don't think employment law would necessarily cover it.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to go into too much detail of
fine.
I had 2 successes and a 1, bring it down to 1 success.
Okay. I can't imagine you having learned Latin from employment law. That's all I'm thinking. This is more civics and stuff, which seems more kind of up Jones' street with politics and such. Argue me back if you want.
I would more just go that American degrees tend to be less focused than UK degrees. So while my major or minor or whatever may have been in one thing, I probably would have also taken civics and history or
civics,
something.
American history. Okay, go for it. If you think you've taken that, then go for it. Yeah. So again, intelligence plus academics.
I fell asleep during all of those classes.
You went to college?
I don't think Vancouver went to college.
I went to high school.
That's nearly college.
I barely went to high school.
How'd you do?
What was the difficulty again? Sorry.
6, just standard.
Then 3.
Okay. Given that Joan got 1, I'm going to say that let's give you a general sense. It's something like it's talking about sort of the phrase reminds you of something like public service or something like that. It's something to do with something like that. Cole, that phrase means, word for word, he relinquished everything to save the Republic. So you reach these sets of double doors. Diamond stops and raps on the door, and a heartbeat later, an even voice responds to come in. Diamond opens the door for you to go through, but he steps to one side.
I go in. I lead the way.
Okay. Diamond closes the door behind you. He does not come in himself. Inside is the main feature of the room is a very large writing desk, kind of functional looking rather than luxurious. It's neatly stacked with papers and files, and the walls are kind of covered in bookshelves and cabinets of various kinds, which seem to have various historical tomes and objects in them. You recognize, maybe Cole and Joan recognize rank after rank of like books on law and justice and things like that. Like I'm sure there are, a big sequence, almost encyclopedic tomes of like American law that maybe you can get. And if you're a high-powered lawyer or something you have in your office, things of that nature. Notably, there are no windows. And everything is just lit with a kind of gentle, soft electric light. Sat behind the writing desk is a man, a white man with a somewhat nondescript hairstyle and appearance, kind of very, very average looking guy all around. He's dressed in sort of a very business casual look, kind of just a buttoned up shirt and some slacks. His hair is sort of roughly brown and is kind of combed over to one side in a kind of a very generic hairstyle of clearly someone who doesn't pay that much attention, but also wants to take care of themselves a little bit. As you all walk in, he is writing something on the desk with a fountain pen. And for a few seconds as you walk in, he kind of raises one finger as he concentrates on what he's writing. This lasts a couple of seconds only, and then he places it carefully down, and he looks up and says, I do apologize. I'm just finishing a thought. I'm sure you understand. I'm not sure I've had the pleasure of a formal introduction to everyone here, given the peculiar but welcome hierarchy of our sweet Queen City. But for those of you who I have not met, I am Ludlow. Prince Ludlow, I suppose, but that burden is not upon me all the time as such. He steps up, rounds the desk towards you, and proffers his hand out. And I think we'll wrap up the session there for the night.
Awesome.
So there we go. If you've got any questions or comments out there, folks, please sling them in chat and we'll address them before we sign off for the night. Running a little late tonight, but first sessions tend to end that way, at least when I'm running them. So hopefully that's okay with everyone. In the meantime, before we get to questions and comments and the like, I will sling some promo in here. Check out the video description below. You will find, or the about section if it's on Twitch. I always say that, even though it's YouTube specific. Either way, down there, you will find a bunch of links. You'll find links to our YouTube and our Twitch. You're watching on one. Please check us out on the other and give us a follow and a subscribe and all that good stuff. There's links to our social media, our Discord, and our Patreon. I'm not going to patronize you by telling you what those things do. You know, and if you're interested, then please check them out. We run 3 weekly long-form actual play campaigns here on Twitch, all of them starting at 8 o'clock in the evening GMT. Mondays is Shadows of Estrin, which is a lovely kind of like smaller, I guess, low gothic fantasy game that our Monday crew is running, including Inga is in that. So please check that out. We also have Wednesday nights, which is Simbaroom, which is a kind of dark fantasy from Free League that we've been running for ages now. And Thursday, obviously, is the World of Darkness anthology series. And if anyone's confused, if they've dialed in halfway through, the intention is that we're running 5 different story arcs covering each of the core 5 World of Darkness systems. So we're starting tonight with Vampire. It was the first, right? So that makes sense. We also run monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month. The more clear-minded of you will realize that means this Saturday is one of them, which it is. We'll be running June Adventures in the Imperium. Chris will be GMing that. And the two lovely people to the left of the stream here, John and Pierre, will be taking part in it along with Steve. And that starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon GMT. It's all in our schedule down below on Twitch, so you can check it out there. Because of the way this year is run, that also means that from Sunday onwards, we'll be running a poll for a week or so on our various social medias and Discord as to what people want as the last one shot of the year. Because basically we're sending out there and giving people the option to pick one of the one shots we've run this year, and you'll get a sequel to it. How exciting! How wonderful! Engagement. Brand content.
That's what we're all about. If you learn nothing else, we are all about the influencing and the content here at Telling Tales. There we go. That's all my promo, I think. We've had a few follows this week. I think I've touched on most of them. But thank you to John42 for your resubscriptions. It's most appreciated. And we had someone extra today. I'm going to choose to pronounce this Dante Thek9.
So thank you for your follow. So what have we got? What have we got in chat there, John?
We've got of general comments while we were playing. Important question about Nosferatu.
From yourself. Yeah. Does Fen, the former actor Himbo, still have his Himbo 6-pack?
I think you'll have to wait for the big reveal.
The big reveal. The Nosferatu disrobing. Yes.
Exactly. That scene that will definitely happen in the middle
what we
of
all want.
4-episode long thing.
It's what we all want. Yeah, absolutely. What else we got, John? Alvin Delius, welcome. One of our finest patrons right here. Everyone loves Wendelius. Joan is like the responsible adult in the group. Do you see her ripping out shotguns or licking bodies? No, be more like Joan. At first, and I actually read that. Do you see her ripping out shotguns or licking bodies? Like, is that her future path? But no, she did not do those things. Be more like Joan, absolutely. BMLJ. That's our. What
I'm
would
not
Joan
sure the
do?
ripping out shotguns was so irresponsible, but yeah.
Sometimes it's better to have a shotgun than not have a shotgun.
That's what I was thinking.
In the world of darkness. Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, do you?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's very hard to conceal. I'll put it that way. So I'm assuming you haven't carried it into this.
No, I haven't brought it to meet.
It could probably be in the trunk, though.
Yeah, maybe in the trunk of the car, can we say, or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not going to pass up a free shotgun.
Next to the shovel?
With Fen's shovel and my big duffel bag of paint cans.
Yeah, something like that.
Surprisingly, the most innocent part of that.
Absolutely. Definitely.
I was going to say, let's hope we're never pulled over by the police, but considering Fen is normally riding with us, let's really hope we're never pulled over.
Absolutely. Cool. Let's Steve, it's going to turn into a Tarantino flick soon. That kind of thing was kind of an inspiration on that first scene for sure, with like you know what, actually not Tarantino. I'm not a huge Tarantino fan. Actually, it was more of a Breaking Bad thing for me. Diamond was definitely more Mike Ehrmantraut than Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction or whatever. Definitely. 42. This is like an episode of Breaking Bad. There we go. Yeah, it wasn't like I hadn't had that in mind that I wanted to do that, but as I was doing it, I was like, that's where my mind went. You know, I've only relatively recently watched Breaking Bad. I still haven't finished it, but
I think I remember when 42 was saying that, and I think they were saying that at the time that we were sort of bungling the various cleanups. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's where it becomes a bit more like.
Yeah, absolutely.
On to the actual serious questions, I think.
Oh God,
where are we?
Serious questions.
Why Cincinnati? Okay, I have multiple reasons for this, and I'll give you them. And it'll be very easy for me to give you them because you know what? Someone asked this in a Reddit post because when we were promoting this on Reddit, someone asked me that. Someone from Cincinnati, I think. These are the answers I gave, and they are as true now as they were a week ago. So there's 4 reasons, basically. Number 1, I wanted to pick somewhere in the US because for better or worse, America in the 90s is a place a lot of folks can very immediately wrap their heads around, and it's also pretty much the default World of Darkness setting. Number 2, I wanted a city that hasn't been covered in the canon all that much, so I can do my own things with it. But I also want it to be a recognizable name and a place that has some interesting history. And Cincinnati, despite having a reputation for being boring, does have very interesting history to it. It's a slightly dilapidated and run down town that at one time was like a candidate for the second most vibrant and important city in the country, and that was a real industrial and trading hub. But then Chicago happened, essentially, and it kind of fell into disgrace. That's my very limited understanding of the situation. Number 3, speaking of Chicago, it's close enough to Chicago to use some references and comparisons for long-time World of Darkness fans, with Chicago being like one of the main cities covered by that. And that includes me. Most of my vampire games over the last 25 years have been set in Chicago, using various editions of the book Chicago by Night. So I wanted somewhere kind of close. And the fourth is real simple. This isn't something I bought for this. I am a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals and have been since I was about 11 or 12 years old, which is decades ago, folks. If you want to know why I'm a fan of the Bengals, and you'd be right to wonder and why, but that's a whole different story. Maybe I'll tell that next time on next time.
Oh,
So you have to tune in. But yeah, I'm a fan of the Bengals for my sins. So there we go.
I did, well, when we were doing prep for this, and I did like a brief on like Cincinnati and Ohio in general in 1995, and one of the facts I put down was 1995, the Bengals were only 6 years into their 25-year playoff drought.
Yeah, thanks for that.
It's fine, it's all over now.
I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this who aren't familiar with American football, but just in case you can't read between the lines, the Bengals are shit. So that's all you need to know. Their nickname is the Cincinnati Bungles. So take from that what you will, and not because of rainbow.
I think that's all
Very UK
what being a Bengals fan is all about, though. Is like embracing that.
Embracing the pain, absolutely. Suffering through it. And like World of Darkness, right? It helps me get to that gothic-punk kind of horror place.
Do you think Bengals are even worse in the World of Darkness?
Maybe it's like Mirror World. Amazing.
That's a really good question. How would different sports teams fare in the World of Darkness? I don't know. I don't know about that. But I'm willing to bet that even in the World of Darkness, my boy AJ Green is still a vastly underrated wide receiver who no longer plays for the Bengals. Of course. Why?
We've got a nice comment from Rendelius. Changing the subject.
Changing the subject. Thanks for taking the time to cover the rules and setting. You have both new players and new vampire viewers. Hope you can keep catching us up as things progress. I really hope that as well, and it's something I like to do. Rendelius, you know, I like to do that from watching the other stuff. I guess my worry with this is because we're hopping between those different systems with the story arcs that it might bog us down if we take too much time for it. But I think we do a fairly good job of explaining by context, I think, as well, and not deep diving too much, but going through the different things. I hope. But if anyone has any specific questions about the setting or the rules, feel free to sling them, and we will address them by the end of the session.
It's also a follow up.
And as Steve says, there's always the Discord for any more vampire questions or any World of Darkness questions you have. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you if you go on there and answer them. And while we're doing it, in case Steve may already have done it, can we get a link to the Discord slung into chat by someone? Would be nice.
Get on that.
Cool, thank you. Steve, how are the new vampires finding things? Well, new vampire players. So for anyone who's curious, John has played Vampire for quite some time, is involved in my offline Vampire campaign, which has been running on and off for about 10 years now. So has plenty of Vampire experience. Pierre his only Vampire experience is in London Ascendant, which is the old Vampire series we did on Telling Tales. But that's still a chunky amount, right? We played that for 6-9 months. Inga, sorry, I'm terrible. Inga and Holly, none. Right, this is your first time World of Darkness stuff.
Yeah,
Inga and Holly.
I haven't even watched actual
it?
plays of it, so
sure.
Yeah,
how are you finding it?
I'm having fun with it. It's the setting itself is really good, and I'm having fun with all the little bits and pieces of abilities. It's quite interesting playing what is kind of the base system that a lot of things then were permutations of.
Yeah,
because I've always heard about Vampire the Masquerade being not the original, but one of the main RPG systems previous to the big rise of D&D.
D&D was huge first as well, but then in the 90s it had kind of fallen into disrepair.
The resurgence of D&D.
Absolutely. Yeah, Vampire the Masquerade was absolute. I will rant for this about ages, but I won't. Was actually absolutely at the forefront of the 90s role playing movement. Yeah,
but it's definitely interesting to see that kind of base, and and I'm intrigued by what the humanity and willpower system is going to do later in the game.
Yeah, he'll definitely come to the fore.
I would echo all of that. Yeah, absolutely, same.
It's good. Yeah, I always think one of the interesting things coming to Vampire, like this relatively late in its life cycle, as it were, for people will be that you've no doubt encountered all the stuff that it's influenced first. If you see what I mean. Like, I don't know if anyone here has watched True Blood, but True Blood is fairly... Like, I'm always kind of surprised that there was never more made of how much it's just Vampire the Masquerade. Because I haven't really watched it, but I've looked at bits and pieces when people mention them, and I've gone, that sounds awfully familiar, and gone to look and like... Because I know other similar things, Underworld, when it came out, which I guess a lot of people might not remember now, is like a vampires versus werewolves thing. Underworld, the makers of Underworld literally paid out of court White Wolf to avoid being taken to court. Because it was just the
that concept.
Yeah.
The thing about True Blood is, I watched it before I became familiar with the lore, and there were loads of things when I was watching that I was like, "This is a really interesting take on vampires and vampire society." They're all in
Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's one of those things where I guess because of its origin as a tabletop role-playing game, it maybe hasn't got the credit it deserves culturally for like its influence on like, I mean, the whole notion of just different supernatural beings existing in the same world, which I'm struggling to think of an example before that of like in
Buffy.
such a defined way,
Buffy
it does not predate. Oh, the film.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about True Blood. Sorry.
No. I mean Vampire the Masquerade, which first was published in 1991, 92. So yeah. But yeah. What else we got? Sorry, players, if you desperately need to hop off, you can absolutely do so. But I'm enjoying answering questions, so it's up to you. Up to you entirely.
I'm really enjoying the questions, but I'm afraid I am going to have to duck out.
That's absolutely fine, Inga. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Catch you guys later.
I'm going to have to go too. So,
yeah, no worries.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm fine to just stay here and talk about vampires.
Yeah, I like talking about vampires.
There's a really good follow-up, like related question.
Ridiculous again. What's your vampire source of inspiration? Interview with the Vampire, Twilight, Dracula, the excellent vampire PC game, something else. Honestly, it's like the thing for me about all those things is I experienced Vampire the Masquerade thoroughly before I experienced all those things.
Yeah.
So for me, like my influence is just Vampire the Masquerade mostly. I do take my cues on Vampire the Masquerade related things because it's so definitive in my brain that like other things don't register all that much. There's a couple of things in there though that I do mentally take a bit of inspiration from. One is Dracula, which I love. I go so far as to say it's one of my favorite books. So there's not really elements of that in this story, but like within my horror storytelling, I definitely go to the well of Dracula quite often in my head as like scenes to evoke things or whatever. Specifically, probably my favorite horror segment of any book ever is the chapter about the Demeter in Dracula, the ship that runs aground in Whitby. And there's just basically a chapter because for anyone who hasn't read Dracula, it's a series. There's a word for it where everything's an account written by someone. So a diary entry or a voice recording or or newspaper clippings. And the chapter of the Demeter is like, I think, a combination of news clippings and the captain's log of the ship. And basically Dracula has stowed aboard the ship and is eating the fucking sailors one by one, and crazy supernatural stuff is happening, and it's really good. And that's a big influence on my Dracula stuff, as is the 90s film Bram Stoker's Dracula. Don't laugh at me, I'm a 90s boy. It's wonderful. I will die on this hill. And by excellent vampire PC game, I'm assuming you're meaning Vampire Bloodlines, which is of course a Vampire the Masquerade game, and is absolutely an influence, I think, on everyone who's ever played it doing vampire stuff afterwards, because it nails it pretty much. And another influence I would say on me is another more recent vampire game, confusingly just called Vampire, although Vampire with a Y, which is a a game that's very Vampire the Masquerade like, and I think I dug into that and think I found that they actually did try and obtain the license, so that kind of makes sense. But it's set in like the 1920s during the Spanish flu, and you play a doctor who has become a vampire, and faced with various moral quandaries and wondering. It's very World of Darknessy, to the point where you can kind of go, that vampire is that clan, and that vampire is that clan, and so on and so forth. I also started playing that wonderfully right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So that did a number on me, because everyone there was like, the Spanish, dying of the Spanish flu, and it talked about the various things that killed people there, which are similar to the COVID stuff. That was fun. That didn't make me a paranoid wreck at all, so that was good. But check it out. Yeah, those are my vampire influences. Does anyone
there's
else have any
also,
vampire influences?
I mean, there are various things that you and I have talked about that aren't vampire influences, but still are very much influences to Vampire the Masquerade. Things like The Crow and Dark City, like, are both things that we tout as like World of Darknessy.
They are very World of Darknessy. They are both post Vampire the Masquerade, because they're mid-90s stuff. But yes, absolutely. When I put this group together, I said, if you want to get the vibe of World of Darkness more than anything else, probably don't do it. Maybe play Vampire the Masquerade's Bloodlines, but other than that, if you want to absorb the World of Darkness in an hour and a half, just go watch The Crow, because it's just, yeah. It's so World of Darknessy, they eventually released a supplement to allow you to play The Crow in the World of Darkness, Revenants. The concept of a Revenant, which is called The Risen, and is a source book for Wraith the Oblivion.
I think 42. Yeah, that one is.
What We Do in the Shadows.
Clearly,
my
influence.
Yeah. I love the movie, and you know what? I am only currently watching the TV show. I'm binging it at the moment, and I'm on to the second season. Definitely, I would say not so much an influence for this, but it is
just you wait.
It is wonderful, and I highly encourage everyone to watch it, because it is fucking hilarious. If anything, it's better than the film, I think. So.
What we do in the shadows is when your typical quirky D&D group play VTM.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yes. Wonderful. Cool. Okay, I think we've talked quite enough now. So thanks to everyone for hanging around. Thanks to everyone who watched and enjoyed. Thanks to you if you didn't enjoy it as well. You're a number. It's the same to us. Thanks to my wonderful players, of course, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Check out Dune on Saturday. Come watch that. Watch Chris and John and Steve and Pierre play that. And yeah, we'll see you next Thursday for more World of Darkness, Cincinnati Chronicles. Bye-bye.
You are a number.